Hi everyone, I'm on a bit of a roll. I've had so many wonderful comments and suggestions so I thought I'd just do another video because I didn't cover everything that I wanted to do previously. And again, it's focusing on the Saturn-Neptune harmonics, I've called it this time, and there's nothing new under the sun. And Gann always says the future is but the repetition of the past. And so that's all about the cycles of the planets coming back and repeating. It might not be exactly the same repeat. People say it rhymes, but a lot of the issues repeat. And so he told us to look back. And so that's what I do with most of my work. I look back in history and see what we can see. So this is the quote he uses quite a lot in the Bible, and it says, "The thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there's no new thing under the sun." And so that's true, okay, because the cycles have their patterns, they have the synodic years, but eventually they'll come back to the point where they started. As I've been showing you in my previous videos, please watch them because I try not to repeat exactly what I did in the previous ones. So for those who may have not known what all this Saturn-Neptune's all about, just a very short recap. Saturn is a planet of structure, borders and power, authority, governments, and Neptune's all about illusion, ideology, dissolution, and the sea. Okay, no boundaries. And together, they've shown in the past that they collapse and rewrite world systems. Okay, because one is structure, to build, and the other one is they can be good together because I've spoken about you can build your vision with it, but it can also, the Neptune can dissolve what Saturn has built. Okay, so they're really extremes. And so looking back, every time they form a conjunction, not just in Aries, but look, I've been talking about just the Aries point, but they also just come together almost every 36 years. It's about 35.86 years. And this graph is fantastic because I actually got it from, I put it together using astroseek.com. He does amazing graphics. And I actually also used the work of Andre Balbolt in Planetary Cycles Mundane Astrology. So he was a French astrologer who lived until 99, and his work was only recently translated into English, but his work is amazing. If you can get your hands on this book, if you're interested in this sort of work, and he actually did predict the like a virus outbreak, and he died like literally a few months before COVID took over the world, and so his work is phenomenal. And so that's the basis of this chart. I've just put in extra information. Okay, so what we've got here is every time Saturn conjunct Neptune from these years. Okay, I didn't put every year in there because it's just too much noise, but you can see that when we go through these times, there's major global like world events. And if we start, like for example, I'll go to the closest one we've had is here, is in 1989. Now when you see three times, that's because you probably know that planets go retrograde, direct, and then retrograde together, even when they're together. Okay, so some years you'll have them come meeting three times, other times it'll only be once. When they meet three times, more things happen. Okay, it's like a repeating cycle of them doing their work, if you want to call it that. So in 1989, if you remember, this was the fall of the Berlin Wall. That's a massive thing that happened. And also, if you look at the symbolism, remember astrology is all about symbolism, okay? So it was in Capricorn. Capricorn is a sign of governments and authority, okay? The Berlin Wall is the structure. That's very much a Saturn structure, okay? Concrete. And Neptune came along and dissolved it, pulled it down, like pulled down the structure, okay? So that's one of this instance when, I mean, obviously there was more happening at the time. Now, what I love you to do, if you are interested in this sort of work, I've got all the dates here. Someone actually in the comments said, we love that you've got the slides so we can stop and we can really study it ourselves. And that's what I want you to do, because I've only put a couple of things that were happening on these dates. You can then go in if you want to and do your own cycles analysis with this cycle and see what other things were happening globally at these points. Okay, so if we look back also in 1952 to 53, in this era here, again there was 3 conjunctions. This was around the death of Stalin. Okay, now what I want you to notice is that this at the moment in Libra is opposite to where they are conjunct in 2026. Okay, and then we'll go to this one in a minute. So Aries is all about me first, whereas Libra is about us and alliances and treaties. So this was like post-war treaties and blocks and countries forming alliances. Okay, but the energy is completely different now. It's like me first, and you can already see this happening with a certain person wanting to, it's more about sovereignty rather than alliances and treaties. So that's an interesting thing to look at as well. The signs can give us information. Now, when they were conjunct in 1773, we know it was happening around that time. This is the rebellion of the English colonies in North America resulted in their independence. Okay, so that was the lead up to the American independence. Then when there was in Leo, we had the Russian Revolution. That's in 1917. In 1738, when they were in Cancer, this is war broke out between Britain and Spain over trade rights. In 1882 in Taurus, this was a creation of the European Socialist parties. Okay. In 1845 to 1846, when it was in Aquarius, this was the emergence of Marxism and the European Revolution of 1848. Also, there was a Mexican-American War at that time between 1846 and 1848. So you can see a lot of this. Even in Sagittarius, 1809, uprising of Spanish colony in Latin America. So have a look at these dates and see what you can come up of it, because it's not just what I've written here, as I said. Okay. Now, yesterday I did a video about when Saturn and Neptune actually came back, were in the past, when they were actually at 0 degrees of Aries, like this year on the 20th of February. Okay, and it goes back over 6,000 years ago, all right? But they also were in Aries, not at 0 Aries, but at 11 degrees of Aries in 1703. So we've still got them coming back to the sign, not the exact degree, but it's still got the same vibration, if you want to call it that. This was the time of the War of the Spanish Succession between 1701 and 1714. So this is important. So I'm just going to focus on this a little bit. Okay, so that means that they've come back to that point. It's taken 323 years to return there. Previous to that, again in Aries, but not at 0, but at 21 degrees of Aries, that was in 1380. Again, I recommend you do some research in this if you're interested in history and historical repeating patterns, okay? And there's lots of more, I've put more times when they've been, I've gone all the way back to 1,000 years, or that time. So you can see them all line up in here. It's amazing doing this. This is where you can get these charts from, astroseek.com. Fantastic free charts if you want them. Okay, so what was happening? What was happening in 1703? Last time they were there, this was again a fire cycle because it's Aries. The world reset signature through wars, storms, and empire building. So there was a war of Spanish succession, as I said. This triggered the collapse of the royal lineage and redrew the entire political map of Europe. That's pretty big, okay? Now, this is interesting. This is the Great Storm of 1703 in Britain, the worst storm, natural disaster they've ever had. 100k winds, over 8,000 deaths, naval fleets destroyed, and churches and cities collapsed. It's huge. It's interesting because I've been putting this up since last year to my inner circle and people who subscribe to my OMS Planetary Watch, that this storm was coming. And I just heard yesterday that Britain is expecting a mega storm. Okay? This is what I mean. As soon as I put something up, I look at the news and it's there, okay? So the other thing that happened in 1703 was the founding of St. Petersburg. Peter the Great establishes a new empire city built on marshland. Tens of thousands died constructing it, and Russia's new powerhouse base, is born from force, okay? Very interesting here. They're building, Saturn's building. There's a vision, he had a vision, but he's using people, obviously a lot of people died in the construction of it. So the shift to modern empires, so there was the decline of monarchy, the rise of naval and financial empires, expansion of national debt systems, military industrial production increases at that time, okay? So that was last time. This was 1703, okay, that they were in Aries, but not at the 0 degrees of Aries, because that goes all the way back to 6,000 years ago in Sumerian cradle of civilization that I showed in the previous video. So also at that time, it was Newton's principle reshapes reality, mathematics replaces mysticism, and the mechanical universe replaces spiritual cosmology. So that was changing. The science was changing as well. So what does it teach us? Are we getting lessons? So there could be collapse of old legitimacy, war as a catalyst for rebirth. We can see all this happening, natural and systematic shocks. Yes. The world at the moment, there's natural disasters all over. We've got fire in Australia. There's flooding in many parts of Europe, Sicily and Greece, I think even Spain. And then the United States has got a storm that they're frozen over. They've lost a lot of power. So yes, this is right. It's true. There's also birth of new power structures. Well, that's what they're trying, right? And illusions dissolves through fire and force. So there is that force for sure. So in that 323 year Saturn and Neptune return, there's approximately 9 of their conjunctions in this cycle. This is like a long wave harmonic. It's like a long wave harmonic karmic return of world illusion collapse. So anything that was not real or strong is likely to collapse. Okay. And yes, that's the short one today. I just wanted to get all that information in. So we've got lots of cycles that we've been looking at, but as astrologers, we focus on, especially when two planets come together and they form a cycle again, they come together, it's a synodic cycle. We also look at when the outer planets change sign, because that changes the whole vibration. There's a shift in how we're going to feel, because every planet, if you think of it as a metaphysical, planets have vibrations. We vibrate, and our consciousness is not in our brain. They've shown that it's outside our brain. We're in the field like the stars here. And we are all one. Our thoughts are in here. They're not, you might be thinking in here, but it's actually connected to a field out here. And the field is where the planets are as well. So their vibration is what we pick up. I know it's hard. It might be a little bit out there, but this is how I see it. And I know Tesla always talked about how he got all his ideas from, he was just an antenna. And we are just antennas, and we're tuning into certain frequencies, and each planet has a frequency. That's been shown. That's not, woohoo. It's actually true. And they actually have sounds. And so if they've got sound, they're working on a vibration. And so we feel those vibrations. And so, okay, I study these global cycles, but I also study cycles in the stock market. But who rules the stock market? I know people say it's totally manipulated, and I'm sure it is at times, but also people It's like mass psychology. There are days when we feel happy and positive, and maybe a little bit greedy. And then there are days when we have fear and we want to reserve what we have. And the planets are very much like that. Saturn likes to be conservative, okay? Whereas Jupiter can go all the way. They're the two very opposite signs. And so that's what it's about. So, and the other thing is, that's what I wanted to bring up. The whole Aries thing, the signs also, our body, have been shown to have the zodiac signs on it, okay? Because astrology can also be used for medicine. They used to be very proficient at it. And Aries rules the head, the face, the brain, and the skull, okay? It's also, Mars, the ruler, is also involved with fevers, infections, inflammation. So, this is a time when you might be, I sort of think that there could be something that affects people in that sort of area where you get, I suppose it can be anxiety and depression and so forth, but you have to really look after yourself, your nervous system with these. If you feel a bit sick, you really need to rest and be careful. Also, Mars is about, I said infections, but you can get burns and scalds, and it's all to do with our blood vessels as well. So yeah, look after yourself, because you have to also look at where this Aries is in your chart, because it will be activating a house in your horoscope, I should say, and each house has a symbolism. So, if it actually is, maybe if you have Aries rising, so you might feel like all this energy is giving you really bad migraines and headaches because it's all to do with that area of your head. Okay. If it's in your 7th house, for example, the opposite, it might be your kidneys, some sort of infection in your kidneys. So you've got to look at it that way. Yes. And the other thing is, as I said before, Aries is about self. So you might find that this year, with all this energy in Aries, as you finally say, I'm going to do this myself. And there may be relationship or friendships, partnerships, because that's the other side, which is Libra, that don't serve you anymore. You need to release them because they haven't worked for you, and you feel like, I'm going to do this by myself. That hasn't worked for me. So you might feel that, but it's okay. You can get things done. You've got to drive. Mars is very good for competition, getting things done. It's a lot of energy. And so, yeah, go with it. Don't be afraid to go out alone if that's what you've been feeling, because all the Pisces energy is going now. I mean, Neptune is not going to be, by the time we go around, we won't be around, okay? So use the energy to move forward with what you want to do. And as I call it the Crusader energy. So whatever your own Crusader mission is, this is a great time for you to step forward and, yeah, be a little warrior. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm really excited. I know I may talk too quickly, but it's got a lot of energy going through my body with all these areas. And I still haven't covered the eclipses yet, so I've still got a lot to do, but thanks for all the comments. I really appreciate it. If you like this, please subscribe and put on notifications. It just helps me to build my YouTube channel, but also to spread the message, because I've had really good comments that make me feel happy that I'm doing something for everyone to understand how important planetary cycles are, for us to understand as above, so below, and why the ancients were so um, involved in this sort of analysis. And obviously W.D. Gann, and he had very much an esoteric bent. So yeah, thanks for listening.